On the outskirts of a small town, there was a big old pecan tree just inside the cemetery fence. One day, two boys filled up a bucket full of nuts and sat down by the tree, out of sight, and began dividing the nuts. "One for you, one for me, one for you, one for me," said one boy. Several dropped and rolled down toward the fence. Another boy came riding along the road on his bicycle. As he passed, he thought he heard voices from inside the cemetery. He slowed down to investigate. Sure enough, he heard, "One for you, one for me, one for you, one for me." He just knew what it was. He jumped back on his bike and rode off. Just around the bend, he met an old man with a cane, hobbling along. "Come here quick," said the boy. "You won't believe what I heard. Satan and the Lord are down at the cemetery dividing up the souls." The man said, "Beat it, kid. Can't you see it's hard for me to walk?" When the boy insisted, though, the man hobbled slowly to the cemetery. Standing by the fence, they heard, "One for you, one for me, one for you, one for me." The old man whispered, "Boy, you've been telling me the truth. Let's see if we can see the Lord." Shaking with fear, they peered through the fence, yet were still unable to see anything. The old man and the boy gripped the wrought iron bars of the fence tighter and tighter as they tried to get a glimpse of the Lord. At last, they heard, "One for you, one for me." "Okay, that's all. Now let's go get those nuts by the fence, and we'll be done." They say the old man had the lead for a good half-mile before the kid on the bike passed him. 3 house pets, a golden retriever, a parakeet, and a cat all die and go to heaven. As with all the good animals, God decides to have a personal discussion with each one to see where they will stay in heaven. God turns to the dog and says, "The book of life indicates that you have been a very good boy. But tell me, in your own words, what are your ultimate principles? What do you believe in?" The dog says, "I believe in loyalty, companionship, and love. I have been a cherished part of my owner's family for many years." God smiles and says, "Truly, you have a pure and loving heart. You shall sit at my right hand." He then turns to the parakeet and asks, "What do you believe in?" "I believe in color, flamboyance, and music," the parakeet replies. "For many years, I have displayed my beautiful feathers and filled my owner's house with song." "Your beauty is truly magnificent," God says, "and your song shall echo through the universe. You shall sit at my left." God finally turns to the house cat and asks, "And you, majestic little predator, what do you believe in?" The cat lazily surveys God's throne and says, "I believe you are in my seat." A blonde wanted a pair of real alligator shoes in the worst way, but she didn't want to pay the high prices the local vendors were asking. After becoming very frustrated with the no-haggle attitude of one of the shopkeepers, the blonde shouted, "Maybe I'll just go out and catch my own alligator so I can get a pair of shoes at a reasonable price." The shopkeeper said, "By all means, be my guest. Maybe you'll luck out and catch yourself a big one." Determined, the blonde turned and headed for the swamps, set on catching herself an alligator. Later in the day, the shopkeeper is driving home when he spots the young woman standing waist-deep in the water, shotgun in hand. Just then, he sees a huge 9-foot alligator swimming quickly toward her. She takes aim, kills the creature, and with a great deal of effort, hauls it on to the swamp bank. Lying nearby were several more dead alligators. The shopkeeper watched in amazement. Just then, the blonde flipped the alligator on its back and, frustrated, shouts out, "Damn! This one isn't wearing any shoes either." A police officer waited outside a popular bar, anticipating an easy arrest of a drunk driver. Just before closing time, a man staggered out of the bar. The man could barely remain upright. He was most certainly inebriated. He stumbled around the parking lot for a few minutes, looking for his car. He finally found his car and climbed in as the bar closed and the patrons began to leave. He sat in the car for a good 10 minutes. He turned his lights on, then off, wipers on, then off. He started to pull forward onto the grass, then stopped. Finally, when he was the last car in the parking lot, he pulled out onto the road and started to drive away. The officer, waiting for this, turned on his lights and pulled the man over. He administered a breathalyzer test, and to his great surprise, the man blew a 0. The officer was dumbfounded. "This equipment must be broken," he exclaimed. "I doubt it," replied the man. "Tonight, I am the DD." The officer looked at him with confusion. "I don't see how you could be the designated driver when you are stumbling drunk." "I'm not," said the man. "I'm the designated decoy." A journalist, a social worker, and a lawyer are being interviewed for a management position of a large corporate division. The journalist is called in first. The journalist sits down and faces a panel of stern-faced interviewers. They begin with questions about his experience, qualifications, and previous work. Finally, the head interviewer, with a serious expression, asks, "How much is 2 plus 2? The journalist furrows his brow, thinking deeply. After a moment, he confidently responds, 22. The interviewers exchange glances and thank him for his time, inviting the next candidate, the social worker, to enter the room. The social worker takes a seat and is greeted with the same set of questions. She answers each one with care, discussing her background, her approach to problem-solving, and her passion for helping others. The interviewers seem impressed, but then they come to the final question, "How much is 2 plus 2? The social worker pauses, reflecting on the question. She finally replies, "I don't know the answer, but I'm very glad that we had the opportunity to discuss it." The interviewers nod politely, thanking her for her thoughtful response, and usher her out. Finally, it is the lawyer's turn. The lawyer strides in confidently and takes a seat. He faces the same barrage of questions, responding with sharp, precise answers. The interviewers are intrigued by his assertiveness and legal acumen. Then comes the last question. "How much is 2 plus 2? Leaning across the desk, the lawyer replies in a low voice, "How much do you want it to be?" A small boy asks his dad, "Daddy, what is politics?" His dad says, "Well, son, let me try to explain it this way. I'm the breadwinner of the family, so let's call me capitalism. Your mum, she's the administrator of the money, so we'll call her the government. We're here to take care of your needs, so we'll call you the people. The nanny, we'll consider her the working class. And your baby brother, we'll call him the future." Now, think about that and see if that makes sense. So, the little boy goes off to bed, thinking about what Dad has said. Later that night, he hears his baby brother crying, so he gets up to check on him. He finds that the baby has severely soiled his diaper. The little boy goes to his parents' room and finds his mother sound asleep. Not wanting to wake her, he goes to the nanny's room. Finding the door locked, he peeks in the keyhole and sees his father having sex with the nanny. He gives up and goes back to bed. The next morning, the little boy says to his father, "Dad, I think I understand the concept of politics now." The father says, "Good son, tell me in your own words what you think politics is all about." The little boy replies, "Well, while capitalism is screwing the working class, the government is sound asleep. The people are being ignored, and the future is in deep shit." My friends, if you want to watch other funny jokes, subscribe to the channel.